President Trump set to crash the World Economic Forum in Davos next week, and he's bringing his America First message directly to the people who need to hear it most. He is leading the largest and most senior U.S. delegation ever, including Marco Rubio and Scott Bessent. The president laid it all out on Truth Social, talking about record financial numbers, hundreds of billions in investment, no inflation spike, and adding that, well, maybe tariffs aren't that dirty word that economists once thought it was. So, Bonson, I want to come to you because it's interesting. Larry Fink is sort of the co-chair leading the charge. Trump's going. I thought I read that Jamie Dimon, for one of the first times in recent memory, is actually going to be speaking up on the official stage. Does that help bring more relevance to have real business leaders there instead of some of these globalist talking heads that really, I think, people in America really struggle to relate to?
I don't know. I mean, I suppose the cosmetics of that are outside of my skill set because I don't think a lot about how it looks, and maybe I should think more about it. I think the president is very good at kind of reading the room and having a feel for what's going to help his brand and whatnot. To me, I'm just intuitively surprised he's even going to Davos. But in terms of having business credibility around him and whatnot, I know the president's always wanted that and always liked it, and I think he cares a great deal. I know some of the people that he has on speed dial. He values the opinion of a lot of leaders, but in terms of what it kind of looks like in a midterm election year when he's struggling with, I mean, we talk about like inflation didn't blow out this year. It's 2.7%. It was 2.7% the last 5 months of Biden's presidency. So I'm amazed how the narrative has changed, like, oh, now we have low inflation. It's the same it was at the end. That's not bad, though. It's not getting worse. But my point being, I think he has messaging he needs to do that is going to be tough to do at Davos.
There is some messaging he plans to do at Davos. I want to play this thought from Kevin Hassett this morning about unveiling a new 401k/home equity plan. Take a listen.
We're going to allow people to take money out of their 401ks and use that for down payment. We're still talking about the mechanics of it, but suppose that you put 10% down on a home and then you take 10% of the equity of the home and put it in as an asset in your 401k. Then your 401k will grow over time as the value of your house grows. You'll be healthy, have more money for retirement, and you'll have solved the liquidity constraint problem and gotten yourself a house early in life.
Jackie.
I like the part about using 401k money. I'm adding this, he didn't say it per se, but possibly without a penalty as a down payment so that you can have part of the American dream. That is your money. You saved it. I imagine you'd have to pay some tax on it. They'll probably work out those details. Mm-hmm. Having said that, it's an even switch of capital, so that makes sense to me. What he's proposing on the other side of this is that you've got capital committed to your home and your down payment, and you're using the value of that, let's call it 10%, as an asset to buy equities in your 401k. I have never heard of being able to use the same asset twice for purchasing power. That does not make sense to me. If your 401k was to see a loss because there's a market correction, there's not an actual asset in there to back that up.
I don't think that's necessarily what he's saying, and I kind of think what he's saying is even worse.
Okay.
So he's talking about the equity itself being an asset in the 401k.
Right.
Your 401k has this stock and these funds, and then it has this 10% piece of your home. So what really bothers me is that it doesn't do anything to create any new wealth. It's just simply moving parts of the balance sheet of people, and particularly those who would do this are likely middle-class Americans. So they're going to substitute their need for retirement stability with a benefit in buying a home. If you have to take from your retirement assets to buy a home, I think it might call into question if you can afford it. But ultimately, what he did is tie it to the performance of the home.
I'm going to try not to be ugly.
Yeah.
To you.
No, that's okay.
But David, people are buying the home to retire in it.
To retire in it?
Yeah.
Right,
and
not to sell it for retirement.
No, just to retire in it. Like and I kind of push back on the notion that like buying a home is the American dream.
Me too.
But young people who don't have access to family money, don't have access to down payment assets. This is the easiest way to get access. 401k money is your money. period, full stop.
Yes.
Right now, you have to borrow from it
Right.
to access it. You don't have to pay taxes on it, but you do have to pay it back. It's easy to pay it back. It just comes out of your paycheck. But if you get fired from your job or leave your job, you owe that money back almost immediately, or you do owe tax on it. So it's a very complicated situation to get the down payment out of your 401k.
Right.
A lot of people don't have, they're not from money, and they don't have cash to just go out and buy a house. This is a way where you don't actually, they're trying to come up with a way where you don't have to take the cash out of the 401k and you access the 10% down payment, but the money still stays in the tax shelter.
Right.
So it's your money, and you are diversifying your assets into real estate. And because you have the down payment, you now have a forced savings vehicle because you're paying your mortgage on your home. And if you are going to retire in that home, that is a magical way to save for retirement. That's what I'm saying. So I just disagree with you.
I'm just
on
getting
that.
stuck in the mechanics if somebody can explain that piece of it to me. So if your 10% down payment is still growing as a tax sheltered asset within your 401k, I mean, when you go to the closing, the bank asks you for a check. It asks you for, you have to put your down payment down and then you get your loan or whatever as an addition. So how does the bank is guaranteed that
The check comes from the 401k.
Okay.
And then just like if somebody buys a commercial real estate thing in a retirement account, they have an interest in like an LLC inside a retirement account, you're basically going to have this illiquid asset in your 401k that represents 10% of the
your
equity.
down payment.
And it will get funky. It will be very subject to people to play games around it because of the tax benefits that Dagan's talking about. But Dagan, I don't think I'm disagreeing with anything you said in theory, but when you said that you don't necessarily believe that buying a home is the American dream, I don't believe it is. I think people having financial comfort, the ability to have comfortable lives, raise their families, that to me is the American dream. And a lot of times that involves owning a home, and sometimes it may not. But I don't think, all I'm saying is that we're talking about pitting two things against each other, that it is now buying a home, but the asset is coming from what would have been compounding in the retirement. So it is a perfectly acceptable thing for people to do, but it isn't creating any new money. It's moving from one pocket to the next. That's all I'm saying. And I think that it might potentially incentivize some behavior that could be ill-advised.
You get in here.
Well, I'll make two observations. One, this sounds pretty complicated.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it's going to have the bang for the buck in terms of selling Americans on housing affordability. Maybe it's not. But the other piece is I don't think it does anything about supply. So people are going to take money out of their 401k and they're going to put it toward a home, but it's just going to raise home prices. And I think the big problem is home prices are too high right now. So, you know, I'm going back to my old saying. You're running the marathon. It's the night before the race. Don't mess around. Housing prices are moderating. Interest rates are coming down. Things are getting better. Right. I don't love gimmicks. This to me, if we got to debate it for 5 minutes here to try to figure out what it is, and it's what did you call it, funky?
I said confusing.
Yeah, confusing. I think you called it funky. Yeah. I don't think that's the answer if that's what it is.
All they're doing is streamlining something that people can do right now. That's what they're doing.
And so you're saying the people that have some liquidity but don't want to use it by borrowing from their 401k,
Right.
it gives them the ability to move the money from their 401k to a down payment.
Right.
They now have less money in the 401k compounding in the investments. So their retirement has money that has come out of it, but then they're able to go buy that home with it.
And when I
so
say
just moving
about the American dream, I just don't like the guilt associated with like you haven't achieved the American dream if you don't own a home.
Right.
But if it is your dream, this is a way to get cash to put a down payment down, and you don't feel like you've been left behind.
It also presupposes, Dagan, a return on what those homes are going to do that looks like the past. That might be a very bad idea. If we think that people's 401k assets are going to go up 10% a year, do we think their home prices are going to go up 10% a year? Because if we do, I just want to be clear that means we think home prices are going to double in 7 years. Does anyone want the home prices to double again in 7 years?
They have to go
because
down.
then you're going to have blood on the streets if that happens.
We are going to get more
Well, you know what?
Stuff around this plan next week at Davos.
It's your money. It's a 401k plan. It is your money, and you should be able to take it and spend it however you like.
I'm for the freedom of it. I'm just referring to what I think might be the best thing for people to do. I totally agree with you. It's their money. They can do what they want within the tax limitations.
We'll see how next week goes.